Hey you guys, it's MJ, and you're probably wondering why I'm wearing these big, crazy gloves. Hey you guys, it's MJ and welcome back to Pet Adventures again. And like I said earlier, you're probably wondering why I'm wearing these big crazy gloves, and that is because today my video is going to be all about tarantulas. So I just want to show you guys my tarantula right from the start before we officially start this video, because it is going to be about tarantulas in general, but I want to get my handling out of the way because I technically don't believe in handling tarantulas all the time. I technically don't believe in handling animals that just don't want to be handled, and it's good to handle them, but it's not good to handle them too much. So anyways, I do have my tarantula here. She is actually just a Mexican red knee. So yeah, she's a Mexican red knee, and she is literally just on the verge of molting. She's gonna be molting very, very soon. And in case you guys are wondering, I don't wear these gloves because of biting. I wear it because my tarantula likes to kick hairs whenever she feels like it. Sometimes she doesn't kick hairs a lot, and sometimes she does. So the reason why I'm doing that today, well, anytime I handle her, is because I don't like getting the hairs kicked onto me, and it can happen anytime she feels like it. And like I said again, she does it when she feels like it, and she does it when she doesn't feel like it. It's just very random. But she is gonna be molting very, very soon, couple days, maybe a week or two from now. So honestly, she just doesn't feel like being handled. And one of the reasons why also I decided to handle her in this video is because prior to molting, they don't move around a lot and they are not very active, so I thought it's the perfect time to kind of handle her for a short time. I just want to say, when it comes to handling, you don't want to do it too much before molting. But I wanted to just show you guys her and get a few close-ups, and that's it. So in case you guys are wondering, that is Xena, and she is my beautiful little Mexican red knee. I've had her for at least over a year now. I want to say actually more than that, probably 2 years now. So Xena is most likely a male. I don't really know how to properly sex a tarantula, which doesn't mean I don't know anything about tarantula care. It just means I don't really know how to sex them. There are ways to sex them when they're older, which by older I mean a lot older. So I know that if they have tibial hooks after a few molts, they're definitely a male. Other than that, I'm not too good at knowing about sexing. However, today's video is about top 5 tips that I have learned over time that you guys should follow when your tarantula is about to molt. Now, molting is a very, very, very crucial part of keeping your tarantula healthy. Basically, when you do that, you should cut that out of your video, but I like to keep those in my videos so I can keep it fresh and real and cool with you, just so you know. I'm not weird. I'm really not. I'm not weird. I'm not weird. Which is what people tell themselves in their head when they are weird, but they tell themselves that they're not weird so that they can sleep at ease at night. But yes, my top 5 important tips on molting. Boom, 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 bam, ba-dum, ba-dum. Boom, 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 bam, ba-dum, ba-dum. Boom, 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 bam, ba-dum, ba-dum. Boom, boom. And just so you know, these are in no specific order. All of these are very important when your tarantula is molting, and you should definitely follow all of these. So the first one I have is look for non-tolerance in handling for your tarantula. So every tarantula is a little different. Every species is a little different when it comes to handling, but I would say if your tarantula is usually pretty good with handling, pretty decent, I would say that if they're starting to be very not tolerant of handling and they don't want you to handle them anymore, and a good way of knowing that you should never handle them is if they're turning around completely to face your hand every single time you want to nudge them onto your hand. So I had this problem with my rose hair, and by the way, a lot of people think rose hairs are like the most docile tarantulas out there, and I have to say from experience that the Mexican red knees are a lot more docile, at least from my experience. My red knee is a lot more docile than the rose hair I used to have. I used to have a feisty tarantula that was a rose hair, and when he started getting older, I literally could never handle him. This tarantula, I don't handle her very often, and she's still tolerant. Like she's completely tolerant of me handling her. So I think that says a lot about the species in my opinion. But every tarantula is a little different. But either way, if your tarantula is pretty decent with handling, or you think that lately they've been more non-tolerant with handling more than usual, then that's a great sign that they're going to be molting. And that's actually one of the ways I actually know that my tarantula is going to molt. The second tip I have for molting with tarantulas is keeping your substrate really moist or misting very, very regularly in your terrarium. So in your tank, whatever setup you have, if you have a substrate that holds in water moisture, when it comes time for molting, and this is only when it's time for molting, you want to really keep that substrate very moist. And the reason why I know this from personal experience is my last tarantula had problems with molting because I wasn't keeping the substrate wet enough. And then I realized later on that keeping the substrate wet during molting time is very, very important. So you want to keep that substrate really, really moist. And if you're not doing that, then you need to mist down the entire enclosure every single day up until molting day. Of course, on molting day, you also want to have it very, very, like the humidity very, very high. And then after molting process is done, then you can just keep your whole thing dry again. It doesn't really matter. There doesn't have to be a ton of moisture in there, but when molting time is coming, it is extremely important. I don't know about other tarantulas, to be honest, so this really only goes for Mexican red knees and rose hairs. Those guys definitely need the moisture when molting time comes. Those are the only two tarantulas I have ever owned, and I could say if you own either one of those, stick to these tips at least. I know that there's lots and lots of different tarantulas. I don't know if the rules are the same for any of those, but if you have a rose hair or Mexican red knee, then definitely use these tips because these are applied by my experience. My third tip on molting is look for if your tarantula is eating. So going off feed is a huge sign that molting days are just around the corner. And I don't know if I already mentioned it or not, but my tarantula is going to be molting very, very soon. And the reason why I knew this was because she has a great appetite. She literally eats every single time I feed her. So when I see her going off feed, which she is doing right now, then I know that it's time for molting. Right when she stops eating, since that is very abnormal for her. Abnormal. Get it? Because they have an abdomen. They have a big butt, a big abdomen. So abnormal. It's a nerdy tarantula keeper joke. You wouldn't understand if you don't have a tarantula. But it's very abnormal for her to go off feed. So if I see that happening, I know that molting is just around that corner. So that's definitely a big, big sign that you want to look for. So if you're feeding your tarantula once a week, you know, large crickets, 2, 3, 4, something like that per week, then, you know, and they're not eating and you tried worms and stuff, you really want to be sure that they're also just not getting bored, because they also may want to eat worms or they may want to eat crickets. So you do want to make sure you experiment between that a little bit, make sure that they're just not getting bored of their food. But you'll also know with other following signs. So obviously it's not going to be just off feed. I'll tell you the other signs as well. So the fourth tip / sign that molting time is going to be around is definitely you want to look for slow moving. That is definitely a big one. So if your tarantula is normally moving around in its enclosure a ton, then, you know, like my tarantula, she's always moving around in her enclosure. Tarantulas as a whole don't move around much, but especially at nighttime, I'll see my girl going everywhere possible in her enclosure. You know, she likes to climb the walls, and she'll get all the way upside down on her cage, and she moves around quite frequently for the most part. So when you see your tarantula not really moving much and not really moving around in its enclosure, then that's also a very big sign that molting time is about to be around, because they're uncomfortable. You know, they're really uncomfortable at this time, so they don't want to be moving around very much. So when that's happening and you see them not moving around much, that's definitely a huge sign that they're going to molt. So always look out for that as well. Always check their behavior just to see if they're, you know, a little bit more slower. And for the fifth sign that I have, this is like tips and signs, I guess you could say. But the fifth thing I want to talk about with molting is actually this. There's kind of two in here, because I really, even though it's technically called top 5, like no one wants to hear top 6, right? Or top 7. Everyone wants to hear either top 5 or top 10. I couldn't think of 10, okay? There's not many things to learn about molting. There's really just a few small factors. But I had to put top 5 in the title, okay? That's what had to be done. But I'm giving you 2 in the last, that's 3, nope, that's 2. There you go. There you go. But I'm giving you 2 in this last 5th tip, okay? I'm doing you a favor. So for the 5th sign I have, it's basically if they're making bed webs, that's like the last thing they will do before they molt. So keep in mind, if they're making bed webs, basically it's just what it sounds like. They make a little bed that they can lay on right before they molt. If they're doing this, then most likely they're going to be molting within a few minutes or maybe an hour. But if they're making bed webs, that means that they are definitely ready to start molting, like insanely soon. So between 30 minutes to an hour, something around that nature, or maybe even 2 hours. But very soon within that day, if they're making a bed web, they're most likely about to molt. So that's a very clear sign that you know for sure molting is about to take place. So by the time that happens, you really should have your enclosure ready for molting. You should have everything with the high humidity, and you know, you need to have a water bowl fully prepped as well, because after they're done molting, I realized, at least my tarantulas in the past, they'll go straight to their bowl and start drinking. I don't know if they get slightly dehydrated during the molting process, but I think you should have a clean bowl also ready. And you know, make sure there aren't going to be any bright lights or anything around. So when the bed web is taking place, you should have everything prepared by then. And then in this last 5th tip, a second thing I want to say, and it is the most obvious, and if you can't really recognize anything else, this is the #1 thing you should recognize. Because this should be the big red flag, I guess you could say, when you're trying to see if your tarantula might be molting soon. So the last thing I want to say is, if they have a big spot of kicked hairs, like a big bald spot on their abdomen from kicked hairs, if they have that, and it's not a skin color, it's not like a pale color, but it's black, okay? Not tan, black color. If it is a black color bald spot on their abdomen, then that is for sure 100% green go sign that molting is about to take place. Now, when that happens, it could take anywhere from 2 weeks to a few months for them to actually start molting. So that doesn't mean that they're going to be molting right away. You still have time to prepare and things like that. But it does mean that their molting process is starting soon. So I would say the minute you see that, just start preparing right away. So I'm prepared as of right now. My enclosure is going to be misted down tonight along with the the water bowl is clean, and then I'm also going to have I already have the substrate moistened down and everything for her, so she should be good to go when she's ready. So yeah, those are my 5 tips. I hope you guys liked them. And again, this is just from my personal experience with molting. If anybody else has any other tips, go ahead and leave them down in the comments. Be sweet about it, but let me know what your personal experiences are with molting, or just personal experiences with your tarantula. Let me know if you have a tarantula, or if you're thinking about getting one, or if you're for sure getting one. Leave it all down in the comments. I want to know, along with the Adventures crew, everybody here, all my Adventures crew babies who have been here forever, they want to talk about it with you as well. So I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Please subscribe to this channel if you haven't already, and give this video a big thumbs up, especially if you love pets and tarantulas. And I'll see you guys next time. Bye!